How's it going, everyone? My name is Sam Swelsa, and welcome back to the garage. Should be another quick one for you today. In this one, in the last video, I guess I should say, you saw me install the leash loop, which is now under here, and it's looking good. In this one, we're going to tackle the fin boxes. I kind of wanted to just have the leash loop and the fin box to be its own dedicated video. It should be shorter, and let's just dig right into it. What we've done so far on this board is we've glassed the top. We've glassed the top and bottom. We've hot coated the deck. We have not hot coated the bottom yet. So we still got the raw fiberglass here. What we're going to do is we're going to route out the fin boxes. I'm using Futures, and I have the what's called the Futures 2-pass kit that I'm going to be using today. But before we get into all of that, what I've done is I've sanded down some of the edges here, some of the drips from laminating and hot coating the deck. And now what we're going to do is going to mark out where our fins are going to go. So let's get into it. All right, so first things first, we're going to mark out where we want to place our fins. This is a 5-inch tail right here on the curve, and I'm thinking maybe like a 6 or 7 inch. So I've got my tape measure here. I'm just going to mark up where I want my shaper square. I have it at 7 there. Let's just go 6.5. I feel like that's going to be a little better. Now make sure your square is lined up with the stringer so that you're marking it even on both fins. And I tend to do 1.5 inches off the tail, just what I prefer. I feel like it leaves nice room for the future spin box, and it works well. So right here, the tail is 15 wide, so I'm going to go down to the 12 because these are 1/2 inches. They're marked with because they're measuring it from the center. So if you go 2 ticks down, that's 1 inch, and then 1/2, just right at the 12. So right there, and I'll mark it at the same exact spot over here. That way we're even. And now I mark the top of the fin. There's a little hole in the shaper square right here that I put my dot in. Make sure that that's centered, and then I line it up with the hole over here on this side, like so. Right there, looks good. And I just mark my fins straight. So I'll use this marker right here, which is the 4-inch, the 4-inch box mark right here, and I just mark it right at the very edge of it. You can see there's black already there, and that marking, the fin is dead straight. And what I'll do is when I lay the template over top to route out my hole, I'll then offset it enough to give us that 1/4 inch toe in or so. We'll just do the same thing on this side. Line it up there. And we're good. So this guy gets put away. The next big step is making sure that my router is going to cut to the right depth. The Futures 1-pass kit comes with these little extra washers that you place on there to make sure that it cuts the right depth. I want to say that for side fin boxes like this and it's straight in the foam, I only use 1 washer, but I always double check it just to be sure. I don't make boards every single day, and so it's easy to forget. But that just goes right into my Makita router here. The Futures 1-pass kit comes with all the stuff that slides around it. I'm sure it fits with other routers, but I just know that the Makita one works well, and is what it's designed for, and so that's what I picked up. So sorry, I'm at kind of a weird angle here. I should probably change that, but too late. So to check the depth to make sure that it's cutting right, I have the bit in my router. I slide the sleeve over it with the guide, and then I just lay that on the template, and then I take my fin box and hold it up. And now what I'm looking for is to make sure that it is going to cut to the tip of, here, I'm going to come around so you can see a little better. I'm making sure that the router bit is at least above where the lip of the fin box is, because that means when it cuts in there, sorry, this is a really professional shot right here, that the router tip is above the lip of the fin box, because that means it'll leave a space for it. And even right here, I should probably pull that washer out and see where that is. Be right back. All right, so round 2, as I get caught on the board, let's see where we're at now. Yeah. And that's just about perfect right there. You want to make sure you get this as close as possible because that just makes the box stronger. The more gap you have in there, the more resin fills it up, and that just leaves more room for error. So get it as tight as possible. Now we're going to lay everything out and get to cutting. All right, so to get this going, I'm going to lay the jig on top of it, and there's little dashes right here in it that I'm going to line up with my 2 dots. That's going to change here in a second. There's also this, I think it's called the target tool. There's a nose and a tail side of it, so make sure it goes in the right way. And you can kind of come over top of it and see if you're lined up with those dots, which I am here. But again, remember when I put these dots, it's going dead straight down the board. So then there's little ticks to the side of the center line, and I'm going to line it up with that first tick, which will give me a 1/4 of an inch offset, or not offset toe in, which I really like. I also should probably line this up correctly right here. I like to have the little target, the bottom target lined up at the bottom hole. It's not going to line up with the front one, but that's fine. So that's lined up there. And like I said, I'm going to have an offset right here, a toe in of a 1/4 of an inch. And what I'm really looking for when I lay this out is the angle of the fin. If you can imagine a line going across the board where the fin is creating, both fins will be here and they're going to have an intersect point, right? Because they're pointing in towards the center of the board. That intersect point should be past the nose of the board, right? If the intersection point is here or anywhere on top of the board, there's too much toe in. It's not gonna have enough speed to get on the line. It'll be a really slow board, causing a lot of extra drag. And so just making sure that that cross point is going to be in front of the board. And that looks good to me. And so now we can get the router out. All right, now that we've got the boxes routed out, they're looking good. Always be sure to test them like you saw me do before you mix up resin, because just set yourself up for failure if you don't. So now I've got these Futures fins here that came with the kit. They've got the little notch taken out of it right there, so they just slide in. You can't use them as a real fin. And those are just to help you set them in the box. So that way I can stick them in there, make sure that the fins are at the correct angle. So yeah, pretty straightforward and simple. With fin boxes like these, you don't need to stick any fiberglass underneath it or not. You just use straight laminating resin, and then you're going to come back in with a popsicle stick and or whatever you want to use, a paintbrush, and make sure that you're not getting any air bubbles, that all the little holes in the box are filled, and it's pretty simple. Let's do it. We'll let this cure and be back in with how hot my garage is, probably only like 20 minutes, but I'll give it a couple hours just to make sure it's fully set. And then we're gonna lay some fiberglass on top of these guys. Let's do it. All right, so our fins are set. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tape off the top here, and then we're gonna wrap them in fiberglass. If you have not worked with fin boxes before, they have a raised lip here. And so there'll be a bump underneath the fiberglass, which you then, after a hot coat, you come back and sand flush. So that's the way these are designed. So cover and tape, and then wrap the fiberglass, and let's get to it. Just, as I'm mixing up this resin here, you're just gonna wet these out just like you would when you were laminating the bottom of the board. It's super easy, and it doesn't even take much resin because it's such a small little patch. And all this is doing is just giving the fin box more support. That way, as you ride it, it doesn't pop out on you, because that would not be great. And just to not dirty up a large squeegee like I use for laminating, I use a little blank gift card, essentially credit card blank here that I got off Amazon for a while ago for not much money. And the big thing you want to do when you're working with doing this step is make sure that there's no air bubbles. That's the biggest failure point you can have in a fin box, is if there's a bunch of air bubbles, which is it's kind of hard to get rid of them all, especially when you're doing the lamination with the whole bottom lamp. Then you you have a lot of opportunities to get some air bubbles in your board, but doing it this way, with such a small patch, it's usually pretty easy to get rid of them all. So not too bad. And usually what I find that helps me at least is I can get all of the air bubbles out around the fin box itself, but then I usually have some above the tape. That doesn't matter at all, right? You're gonna sand through that all the way to get to expose the actual fin box underneath. So any bubbles on top of the tape are fine. And so you leave those ones there, and it helps me get rid of the ones in the board, the fin box itself. Just something that I've learned. And then also as you're squeegeeing off the excess resin, that's when you're gonna start pulling on the fiberglass patch and causing more air bubbles. And so that's where you wanna just be really gentle. You obviously don't wanna have a whole bunch of resin pooled up, but you don't wanna create more air bubbles, as I'm kinda doing right there already. Yeah, you see I've got a nice long air bubble right here along the tape line. That doesn't matter because around the black, the fin box itself, nice and clean. No bubbles to be spoken of. All right, so these fin boxes have fully cured, and that's all you gotta do, right? Installing fin boxes, it's kind of scary just because you're routing into a finished board essentially. And it's just, I don't know, for me it was always terrifying because I didn't want to screw anything up. But it's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. So now what we do here is you can still see a little bit that they're proud out of the board, which is the purpose. We're gonna jump back to the last video, one of the previous videos you saw. I'm not sure how I'm gonna order this yet, but we're gonna hot coat the bottom. And then once you sand, you're just gonna sand through, and then that'll reveal the fin box underneath. Straightforward, easy, not too hard at all. I'll grab the camera and I'll show you a little bit close-ups, but there's still some air bubbles in here, but they're all under the tape, which is exactly what you want, right? I mean, I guess theoretically you could do no air bubbles at all, but if you're gonna have them under the tape, right on top of the tape, it's perfect because you're gonna sand through it and it doesn't matter. I've got one right here that's still on the side, which should sand through mostly, and then just when I come back in and do a gloss coat on top of it, it'll get filled up, so I'm not worried about it at all. So pretty easy, pretty seamless. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Yeah, let's get back to glassing the surfboard and finishing it up in the next couple videos. Thanks. Oh, and stay stoked.